I'm here with Gary Prager. He is the COO at Space Coast Credit Union. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Kind of just wanted to start talking a little bit about Nextly Digital Banking and kind of how you guys came to the decision to use Nextly. We'll start from there and dig in a little bit.
Yeah, I think, well, like almost any credit union, it's pretty obvious that our members want to be in digital.
Sure.
But part of the frustration with that is that anytime you have to continue to rely on a vendor, and you probably know some of the big ones out there,
Yeah.
There's only a few of them, you kind of get pigeonholed. And what we found was that we just weren't happy with a lot of the off-the-shelf solutions. And so we knew that we needed to have something different. If we were going to have some sort of differentiation in the market, some sort of competitive advantage, we definitely knew we weren't going to get that from an out-of-the-box solution. And so that's what kind of led us down the path of Nextly. From our perspective, it offered us the ability to not only deliver digital banking to our members, but also to customize it in a way that could differentiate us from our peers. And so that was really important to us. And that's in large part why we made our decision.
Nice. So as you're looking forward to the future, the customizability of the platform, obviously in your role, following the member journey and making sure that aligns with the brand, kind of what excites you about what's to come in 2026 and beyond?
Well, again, I think it's just being able to design what the future looks like. Our focus mostly in the beginning of getting live with Nextly is just making sure that the platform's stable. The last thing that you want to have is an implementation where your members are locked out for days or weeks on end. And so we really put a lot of rigor and focus into making sure that when we made the move over from our previous provider to Nextly, that there wasn't significant member disruption in terms of the user experience, and then also just the stability of the app altogether. And so now we're able to kind of move beyond that and start to imagine what the future of digital banking might look like for Space Coast Credit Union and its members. And so that's what we're really excited about. I think that's what our focus will be on in 2026. We'll be really designing what the future looks like. Exactly what that is, I can't tell you, but I can tell you we brought somebody in specifically to fill that role, that kind of architect role. And so we're excited for him to be here and what he'll bring to the credit union and SCCU Plus.
So a lot of credit unions are in a similar position, right, where they're trying to focus on the digital side of things, make sure that the member journey aligns. What advice would you have for other credit unions who might be kind of at the earlier stages of that? Do you have any advice for other credit unions?
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would have is you're going to be at this crossroad of, do I continue to rely on outside third-party vendors, or do I, kind of start to take some of this on my own? If you go down the road of, we're now going to be the creators of our future, we're now going to, stop relying on these third-party vendors, understand the commitment that is. Because if you haven't done that at any other place in your organization, it's a capability that you're going to have to develop and then mature over time. For all the cons that there were of relying on that third-party vendor, one of the pros was they had stuff that was off the shelf. They had a huge team of people who were always working on the future development of what was going to be there, and it was kind of plug and play. And you kind of had some level of comfort and stability that, you were going to get. The con to that was it was always going to be limited to whatever else all of the other users on that platform had. So when you move away from that, now you're in the driver's seat, and so you have to have the team to build that out. You have to have the project management rigor, making sure that you have teams that understand agile development, and that, you also understand it's a major cultural shift in the organization. You want to make sure that if you're going to invest all that time, energy, resource into moving in that direction, that the organization can start to see the small wins that you're having as well. Otherwise, that change fatigue can be real very quickly. So just understand it's a big decision to move from, wholly reliant on third party to now we're going to do this all ourselves. It sounds great in the beginning, but understand that it's going to be a journey, and it's a lot more than probably what you're doing today.
Yep, absolutely. And even looking at, we come across that a lot in the industry. It's, do we build a product ourselves? Do we buy a product off the shelves? And that's something that CNextGen's trying to kind of find that middle ground of, is why not both, right?
Yeah.
You can have kind of that product, but then you also have the ability to not be pigeonholed to one specific process. Within that, you have the customizability to do it. And I know you guys kind of, you utilize FinTech Insights to do some of that as well, where you can get the data, learning, what features are missing? What's part of this journey? What might my members want this process to be? Do you have any thoughts about that specifically?
Well, what I will say is that, one of our focuses is to make sure that the decisions that we make are backed by data and information. I've been in the credit union industry for over 20 years now. And what I like to remind people is that it's a little bit like being a fish in water. Once you're in the water for so long, you forget the water is there. And so sometimes we can be like that a little bit. I think that across the credit union industry as a whole, a lot of us have been in it for a long time. And so we start to take things for granted, or we start to assume a feature is something that everybody's going to want, or that a functionality is supposed to go, operate a specific way because that's the way we would think to do it. And so this kind of internal, siloed groupthink can kind of take over a little bit. And so that's where this tool comes in, to be able to say, well, hey, here's the people who are doing it the best, and objectively somebody from the outside is now rating that. So I think that that's a great starting point to say, well, there's certain things that other providers are doing really, really well. I think the thing to be a little bit cautious about is making sure that you don't just chase that. Another thing that we kind of get caught up with in the credit union industry is always chasing a peer. And the way that I look at that is it's good information, I think, to have. But if that's all you're ever chasing, it's almost like going for the tie. If you're going to go for the win, you really have to be able to differentiate yourself. And I think the way to do that is to say, how do we use this information to say, this is really important to our members. This is a competitor who's doing it really well. How do we learn from their best practices, but make it our own so that it's still differentiated? And so we plan to utilize the data and the information that they provide. But I think we also want to make sure that we're thinking about how do we also put our own spin on it, the watchdog way, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit it on the head there with the hard member, right? Because all that information's out there, right? But you know your members better than anyone else, and kind of following that with your brand journey and who you are, that member experience can really tie all that together. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate taking the time to meet with me.
Of course.
Talk soon.
Thank you, Clark.
Absolutely.